Well, the other thing that makes the public, certainly I would think in Germany and Central Europe, even more than in Britain, is forcing them to think again about the political relationships in Europe is, of course, what's going on in the East. So let's just shift to that for a few minutes before we bring Mary into it. Do you think that, to some extent paradoxically, the sudden danger which has emerged for the first time on the eastern borders of Europe with Russia and Ukraine could lead to some kind of significant shift in both pan-European and German politics that would actually lead to this next step of European unification that you've been talking about, rather than discouraging it?
Yes, and my answer is a very firm yes. And I think actually Angela Merkel is in a very good position to lead that process, because she comes from Eastern Germany. She knows what the Soviet system was. She understands the threat, I think, better than most people, and it gives her an opportunity to take that.
But interestingly enough, she has been so far perhaps the main restraining influence on, for example, David Cameron and President Hollande in discouraging them from moving towards more aggressive either sanctions or even rhetoric about Russia. Do you think she has actually had the right approach in relation to European politics?
I will not answer that question because I have not been. I was in Asia,
okay,
and I didn't follow it on a blow-by-blow basis as I did up till 2 weeks ago. So, but generally speaking, I think talk about sanctions, we have to be very, very careful. And there's a kind of an instinctive reaction that there's aggression, and therefore you have to hit back. And I think we have to pause before hitting back. I think the right approach actually is to strengthen Ukraine. And that requires actually a positive approach towards Ukraine. There is a package coming together to make up the hole that Russia was going to fill. And I think the IMF, under the leadership of the IMF, the financial authorities...
This is the $15 billion.
$15 billion, let's say, that you need. But that's not enough, because there has to be a positive support for Ukraine, particularly because you can expect beyond the military threat, which is a very serious one, also continued economic pressure from Russia, because for Putin it's existentially dangerous to him for the Ukrainian, the new Ukraine, to succeed.
Now you say the new Ukraine, and you say, well, it's important to help Ukraine, but how can you help Ukraine when part of the country is occupied, as long as part of the country is occupied by Russia? Is there a need to first evict Russia from the Crimea before any of this can happen?
You cannot. This is would be unrealistic to expect, And you also have to recognize that the Crimea is not an integral part of Ukraine. It was transferred to Ukraine by Khrushchev in 1954 in an administrative decree. It's Ukraine. Russia has really vital military, historical, etc. claims on Crimea. It's only been part of Ukraine since '54. It was part of Russia much longer. It's the home of the warm water fleet of the Russian Navy and so on. So Putin couldn't actually remain president of Russia and not take care of the national interests of Russia in Crimea. However, Ukraine is, Russia is also a signatory to the Budapest protocol or agreement, where the great powers, including Russia, guaranteed the territorial integrity of Ukraine, which included at that time Crimea, in order to encourage Ukraine to surrender its nuclear weapons to Russia. And there is no question that Russia is now violating that agreement.